So, Aksinya, from right from the get-go, from the moment that we met, I felt that you were deeply, deeply kind and deeply generous and deeply warm. And that's something that I've seen in many polymaths, but particularly yourself. Now, in our first conversation, right, many, many moons ago, you talked about forgiveness because I came to you with a really difficult problem that I had. And you did not strategize, you did not undermine, you did not do anything other than bringing back forgiveness as a really important value. And then in the festival that we were part of, you talked about generosity. So, subconsciously, consciously, you've already been talking about kindness
Hmm.
quite a while. So, my question to you is your kindness, your compassion, however you frame that humanity within you, has it deepened your polymathy? And if so, how?
Hmm. That's a very interesting question, and I actually never thought of this, but I think it develops definitely simultaneously because what I was, since I've been always a very reflective type since my childhood, I was what they call a seeker of truth. And since I was a child, I was seeking for answers like why are we here? What is it meant to be? What I am, basically. Yeah. I must highlight that I was not interested at that time in humanity. I was interested in myself because I was on the explorer trip to understand what am I in this world. Yeah, that's why people say, yeah, you have all these ideas now because you were always like that. I said, no, I was not. I was always like, at least my childhood, my teenager years, my formative years, I was very much into exploring my own nature. What am I? Who am I? But funny enough, that became a very solid ground actually to understand in the world because as we know, as the wisest people say, you first know thyself, right? So this is basically the key. Without understanding who you are, you can't understand the world. That it's not possible. You can read thousands of books, but if you don't understand how you function, what drives you, what is behind your motivation, why are you doing things, nothing will change. So for me, that was a journey actually. And then what also, so this forgiveness I had since my birth, because I mean, whether you believe or not in reincarnation, but I believe that something like we come to this world already with a set of things. So my set was having this forgiveness. So I was always very but not that I was forgiving, even more that I was not being able to get offended. Nothing could offend me, basically. Since my early years, I had no problem with it whatsoever. That's why forgiveness is such a, like, never was a topic, but I realized it's a topic for most of the people. So I realized, okay, that's a power which I have, that I don't have this problem of hanging on a problem, being unforgiving, thinking of some revenge or what to do, how to, solve the situation. No, I never had this. I would just forget and go. Um, and then that was and another point which I had as a child already, I was very neutral to people, and this is crucial here. I was very neutral, like I had absolutely no like evil thoughts towards anybody, although I was bullied because I was very, like, I was an outlier, and definitely not so much appreciated by my schoolmates. So but I had never ever a single like evil thought, like, oh, they are so cruel, why? And I had absolutely none of this. I was very neutral, like, kind of tolerating them, observing them. I was very much kind of in this observer state, probably. And then why I'm telling all that, because it's interesting to see the transformation. But that was a good base. So initially, I already didn't have this problems with accepting people as they are, understanding that they are like that. So what can you do? And then, but then when I took to my spiritual practice with 20, I actually it also not immediately, but at some point I started actually, my heart started really opening towards people. Because before it was just, like kind of tolerating them, accepting them as they are. Okay, they are like that. You can't do anything, just accept. But then I actually started loving them. And it took years. It's not something that I mean, maybe somebody is born with the huge love to humanity. I was not, but I grew it. I cultivated it naturally. I believe it's through my spiritual practice, because otherwise I can't explain that. And also a serious portion of this came also with the birth of my daughter, because in motherhood you learn this unconditional love beyond anything. I mean, you just understand that you can't function otherwise. You just give and give and give and give, and you don't care about, like, people say, oh, mother's love is so sacrificial. No, it's not. It's natural. You're doing these things not because you want to sacrifice something for your child. No, it's just because you can't do otherwise. So at least in my perception, that happened. So it was a gradual, growth. And now I can always, I just say, okay, the simple point is that I love people. That's it. And when you love, then things become so easy, and people feel that. They just feel that. And they are totally, you know, they deliver to you. I mean, they can't do anything because they feel that love, and when you're with them, you're just emitting that, and they just want to be with you. That's it. And there are no some strange ideas or aggression or anything. It's just not happening. So this is my evolution. Took time, it took really years. It's not just like, on a switch, but I'm enjoying that a lot.
I think it's beautiful because it mirrors so much of my own experiences. However, I had a little dent where I found it very difficult to be neutral to the things that were happening to me. So I was also relentlessly bullied. I was a black sheep in my own family, and I still am in my community. And as an Afghan Uzbek, it's very it's very difficult to stay neutral when there are very emotionally impactful things happening. But the fact that you were able to not allow these negative, heavy emotions to form part of you despite what you were experiencing, I think is an incredible, incredible space to be. I think it's such a mark of your life's philosophy to be able to hold neutrality in the face of such adversity. The reason that I asked the question, Aksinya, is because I've seen that from my own polymathic capacities and interests. I found that the people, and I was actually asked this question on a podcast recently. I went on a podcast recently with someone called Surosh Azizi, who does a podcast show called Raw Talks with Surosh. And he asked me the question. He said, do you think that kind people are more accepting? And I found, if we switch it to your subject matter experience, I would say polymaths are incredibly accepting and incredibly kind and can hold space because they are constantly working within different dimensions of their soul, different dimensions of human experience. And the more exposure we have to different elements of the human spirit and different capacities, it's very difficult for us, especially for you, because you're the expert here, to hold judgmental beliefs or be discriminatory, be undermining, because you're exposed to such a spectrum of human experience. And I found that,
Yeah.
this is something that a lot of polymaths have, which is it's not so much obsession, self-obsession, it's this philosophical stoicism that respects the fundamental truth that if you do not know yourself and if you do not introspect within yourself, very little changes in the world, and and it somehow stunts you from reaching your optimal potential. So that was, you talked about your evolution. Tell me about when you realized that you were a polymath and you started to become, such a part of the epicenter of thought leadership and subject matter experience on the discipline. Did you find that how did your kindness change when you came into the public scene, if at all?
Mm. No, I don't think it changed. It just became more manifested in terms of that it can work for more people just because of exposure. You're just covering more, you're scaling more. But I think the kindness is just the same. But let me finish, because actually you asked me about the connection of polymathy and my, but I focused on the evolution because I realized that this is the core of everything, at least in my case. But the connection is here, that exactly what you've just mentioned, that when you explore new fields, when you're, because for polymathy you have this explorer mindset, explorer gene, or maybe probably, if as genetics says, we have this explorer gene, some of us, which is very it's a driver, you know, you can't stop, you keep exploring all the time. By exploring, you're crossing the boundaries of disciplines, and for you the whole world is like an open, I don't know, it's a classroom. You're learning all the time on the go. And that is, of course, by exploring new fields, new communities, which is very important, by the way, a very, very interesting point of polymaths, that polymaths are actually, they're frequent in several communities, professional communities. There are different interests, and they're cross-pollinating among them. And they're actually bringing these amazing insights from one to another, and they expand themselves through this, because it's not only learning of the subjects and matter. It's a very important point. It's actually learning with the people, from the people, and for the people. So this human element, and I love that you are trying to bring this together, polymath and humanity, because somehow in the field, I see that it's mostly, yes, we're still stuck a bit in this intellectual concept of polymathy. In terms of that, we see it more like being a multi-specialist. It's more work focused or more knowledge focused. But in fact, and I love that you're bringing that here, that in fact, it's actually a lot about humanity, that this polymathy translates into society, translates into our relationship with others, and definitely it translates into generosity, because exactly because you don't have this scarcity mindset, because it's not there. You know, there is so much to learn. You keep learning and you explore new things, and you say, oh God, there is no end to this. And at the same time, it's like a never-ending story. It's just never ends, and this is, and for me, if to go back to your last question, that the connection to how I actually came to this. So I came to, through my research in the history of education, I suddenly, bumped into polymaths, and it took me some time to realize that I'm also that kind of person, because also by this time I was not so, yes, I had many interests and I had two domains, but only two basically, like mastering two domains. Or three, okay, you can say three, because actually my education, I always forget about my education, because it comes so naturally to me. So actually I have this academic training in linguistics, and but somehow, yeah, I worked even as an interpreter. I worked as a language teacher for some years, but for me it never was so important somehow. I don't know, I love languages, but it's such a natural part of me that I even don't think of that even. But so basically, okay, I had these three domains, and that looked, and they are very close, like language, like communication, languages, education, and people and culture. So all these things, they're quite close, and I was not even thinking that I'm such a problem. But then of course, actually after the birth of my daughter, and after I started exploring polymathy, I gained several more domains. So somehow, that was very inspiring. And I just realized that this is just like we are, like, flowers, but we keep blooming, we keep opening. But at the same time, what I also realized, but this is very recent, my recent discovery in last like 2 years, I would say, I realized that actually even any talk of human potential is already a big mistake. We should not speak about human potential, because as soon as you say that I have a potential and I want to unfold it, it means what? It means you're limiting yourself. It means that you understand that you have some kind of, a treasure, a set of potential, I don't know, knowledge, skills, whatever you could have in this life, you could manifest in this life, and that's it. So you see your task as unboxing that, but this is not. Because I realized, watching myself, watching some people I'm close with, how we develop in recent years, it's like really absolutely skyrocketing in many ways. And I know exactly that I'm definitely going far beyond whatever I was able to in my formative years. And this is not because I'm unboxing my potential, unfolding and all this. No, it's because I'm just growing naturally, it, like, there is no limits, because there is no such thing as potential. And I believe I really have to start writing about it more, and probably you want to speak about it too, because it's important because it's giving us a false idea that, again, it's limiting us. Again, it's a very siloed thinking. It's this silos of understanding of our limits. It's again this scarcity mindset that we are limited to something, and we can realize that potential, so to say, but that's it. And that's not it.
Wow, I think it's incredible. There was just so many things. You know, because I'm unfortunately part of the Gen Z TikTok generation where everyone is talking about goal setting and vision boards and now manifestation. I think you mentioned it a few times, which is so wonderful because it's now become such a big part of my life, law of manifestation, law of affirmation. But I think, Aksinya, as an older Gen Z, the oldest Gen Z, I'm looking in and seeing a generation that is unintentionally limiting themselves because we keep thinking about what we don't have, what we cannot have, what the world lacks, what we need. All and I think we are looking for more, but at the same time, that is reinforcing lack. Because when you say more, 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 and then when you quantify and limit that, you're actually creating the very lack that you wish to run away from. So I think that is amazing for Gen Z watchers and listeners. Listen to Aksinya. Do not believe and tell yourself that you have a potential which is finite and limited and it has one DNA strand, however that looks. Live within the architecture of organic transformation. And I completely
Right.
agree with you. And I think another point that you said is I've often found, Aksinya, someone said to me, they said, and I agree with them. They said, Meryl, there's so much that you can offer. Why are you not offering it? And I think sometimes there is a good and there is a bad with generosity, with deep abundance. And you mentioned it with languages. Now I speak 6 languages, and people have said, we don't know that. You don't talk about it. And sometimes I think when you come from the space of having, to explicitly state it and commercialize it is not going to be your first priority. You're just going to live it, right? And I also believe that that's one thing which sometimes perhaps shadows or keeps kind, intelligent polymaths in the shadows, but at the same time, they are often the ones that administer the highest levels of generosity. to others. They are the ones, because they come from that seated, I wouldn't say throne, but perhaps an inner seat of having. They are the ones who ultimately end up giving so much more to others and believing in the limitless potential of others. And even with yourself, Aksinya, you are a very, very busy woman, but you give me so much time. It's almost as if your time, what is an average, what is the utility of an average person's 1 hour? Because of your abundance, your 1 hour spreads into several hours. So that's something that I've seen, experienced personally from you as well. And I think that's why I will often found that polymaths are the bestest of friends and the bestest of partners, because they never ever assume limitation or dictate
Yes.
lessness in others. So that's how I see that.
Right. Wow, that's such a beautiful thought, and that's exactly that. Because we do not assume limitations. That's right. Because we just don't feel them. We're not used to them, and we are, yeah. And there is this understanding of the abundance, as there is this. I think I cited this in the our last talk, but I would love to bring it again because I just love this part. There is this German film, Medicus. It's actually, basically, it's about Ibn Sina, Avicenna. I mean, it's about one young British doctor going to Isfahan to study from Ibn Sina, but by the way, the second part just came out recently. I have to watch it, and so it's a very interesting, like, of course, kind of a fantasy story. But what I love there is this scene which just for me is exactly like the best uh, quote about this polymathic abundance and understanding of the world. There is this episode where this Ibn Sina, Avicenna, he's sitting on the rooftop with this young student, with this British student, and he and they watch the sky, and this the student says, "Oh my God, when I look at this, I think it scares me to see so many stars, so much is there to explore, and I'm afraid I can never explore this. This is kind of." He really was scared of this huge, vast knowledge in front of him, and then the Ibn Sina says, "Yeah, but that's it. It's so I mean, there is still so much to learn." And you could see this fascination for learning, for knowledge, for beauty of the universe, which is in front of you. And as a polymath, and of course we know that Ibn Sina was one of the greatest polymaths of that time, that for a polymath there is no, you can never be scared of the beauty of knowledge and the beauty of exploration. And that young guy, he was really scared by this vastness of the universe. Oh my God, I can never learn. I say, yes, why not? I mean, you can never, but you just try. So this is kind of, for me, is one of the most beautiful metaphors of what it is, that you see the vastness of this knowledge in form of anything, of relationship, objects, subjects, anything, and you are open to this openness. And of course it's related to kindness, because this is related to generosity and anything. It's openness is one of the key points, I would say.
So it's so incredible that you said that. Maybe it's my own memory lapse, but I don't quite recall that part of our conversation in our last talk. But it's so strange that I saw a snippet of that, and of the exact film that you're talking about, and I was like, I have
Really?
to see this, because Ibn al-Sina is from Balkh, from modern day Afghanistan, and I think
Yeah, right.
one who is trying to hold on to that civilization and that heritage, because as a war-torn, present-day war-torn country, a lot of the time people forget that this is the heritage from which we come from. And Alasina is also my brother's name, so we hold on to these
Mm.
pioneers with everything that we have, because they are shining beacons, and polymaths are the people that have moved civilizations into cradles of progress and transformation. Xenia, I want to, because the work that you do, as in line with your incredible nature, you talk a lot about the future of work. And you also talk about, like myself, the future of human civilization. Now, the world has
Mhm.
been churning in this cookie cutter way for a long time post the Industrial Revolution. And we are now seeing, for example, the breakdown of we're seeing the breakdown of 9 to 5 schedules. We're seeing the breakdown of typical job titles. Gen Z are also leading the way with this influencer market, where people can be, do, and make a living from many, many hobbies that they have. My question to you is, now that the world is moving into a different direction, we've got AI, we've got World War III that we are perhaps on the brink of. There's so much transformation happening. And you talk about this at length, but for the sake of our audience today, could you tell us why and how polymathy is going to, and polymaths are going to be the most crucial people and philosophy of the future of human civilization from today?
Yeah, it's a challenging time, right? And very interesting times we're living in, and highly disruptive. And at the same time, we could also see that as a kind of um, step into the new, hopefully, phase of planetary civilization, which I believe will be the next kind of step. So it all look like a total civilizational collapse. And a lot of processes are needed in order to disrupt what was kind of not working. And the good news is that a lot of things which are already working, they are there for us. The solutions are there on all levels, on technical levels, on societal levels, on governance levels. There are lots of fantastic work going on. And one of the points which you also mentioned, the Gen Z and Gen Alpha coming after, these are quite amazing generations, because these are the generations that already got so much care, so much attention, so much investment also of their parents into them, as no other generation in the history of humanity, like if we look at it globally. So I believe what Gen Z and Gen Alpha will show to us, it will be kind of amazing, but it will take some like 10 to 20 years before they really come into power and action power of agency, which they can actually apply. But getting back to polymathy, why is it? Okay, I can't say, of course, I should say probably this is the answer to all problems. but as a polymath, I can never say that, because as a polymath, there is nothing there, because it's a multi-layered complexity we're living in, and there is no single solution. But it's the polymathic mindset is something what I advise strongly to work on for for us as humanity, and that's why my second book is actually, it's called From Industrial to Polymath Mindset, because it gives us their ability, as actually the adaptability, the highest possible adaptability, because polymathic people learn fast and adapt fast to any circumstances, and this is what we will be needing a lot in the coming like 10 to 20 years. It will be a very tough time. And adaptability, creativity, finding unusual solutions, also working with AI, with large language models or next level of models which will come. Um, it all requires very high cognitive flexibility, which also polymathic mind has naturally, because by training that, by exploring more and more, by being versatile, you train your cognitive flexibility. That's it. So all these skills and capabilities, this is actually the base. Without it, people will be lost. They will be feeling totally lost, because if you can't adapt fast, then you are nowhere, and that's why it's essential. And what I love is that basically, like World Economic Forum reports of the last 3 years, they're all about that, pushing into that direction. It's funny they never use the word polymathic or something, because yeah, probably we need to do more lobby work with these organizations. But the skills which they emphasize, like combination of analytical skills and creativity and systems thinking and ability to solve problems in an unusual ways. And this is what we need. And this is only possible if you can combine several domains, because you need this knowledge, and you need the understanding of interconnectedness and systems thinking and complexity and all that. So these things come naturally to polymathic people. So they have this skill set naturally developed in them. They don't even need to train anything, that just comes. This is what, by the way, I love most about polymathy, is that it's actually so natural, so organic. It's an organic creativity, because like all these, there are all these techniques like design thinking and all this stuff, which I absolutely don't like, because you can have it all being a polymath. You just, organically on the go, you create new things, you come up with new ideas, and you don't have to stress yourself into some brainstorming session. No, you don't need a brainstorming session, you just do it on the go. Yeah.
That's amazing. I think again, it's always important not to make puzzle pieces fit where they shouldn't, but in this case, it really does, because a lot of the time, the kind of when people are kind, they are also organically creative. For example,
Mm.
a very small example that I saw when I was traveling was there was a child that was really really distraught on the plane and continued crying, and some people looked over and thought, oh, you know what, this is a disturbance of the peace. A few people looked over at her, at the mother, and said, just a smile, just so that she didn't feel like she was disturbing the space. Another person got up and took the baby and walked the baby up and down the aisle, distracted them so that the mother could have some time for herself. And that
Mm.
is organic creativity. And I think you said it so beautifully. And I think without sort of reducing it to one, gender or energy form, but I think that women have this incredible capacity, or feminine leaning women have this incredible capacity to work smart through organic revelation rather than such a cognitive overload, this intentional process that might be very good at meeting certain things. But a lot of the time, you find that real miraculous transformative work, you can even imagine the way that, for example, Ibn al-Sina or Imam Ghazali used to practice and used to produce. They were at one with a higher conscience and at one with a higher consciousness than doing things so deliberately. And I found that kind people, and I believe that most of the polymaths that I've met, if not all, are kind. They are
Yeah.
organically and perpetually and effortlessly creative.
Effortlessly. Love this word. Yes.
Because effort means to restrict yourself to the cognitive realm. But in order to actualize and materialize these polymathic abilities, you have to be moving and working from many, many different dimensions. And you cannot just be limited to the mind, right? But there's also so much that you said there about the future of work that I don't want to undermined. Some people say, and this is your slogan, polymaths are generalists, and the future of the world is going to be dominated and led by the generalists. Now, I want to ask you a question, a specific situational question. Could you tell us a moment where following your polymathic approach has produced a kinder and what I would call a more effective outcome than perhaps a specialist or conventional approach would have produced? And that could be a work outcome, that could be in your personal life, however you want to, because I think people see polymaths like, when you consider a polymath, you think, oh, this is some great person on the Hall of Fame.
Mm.
This is not something I can actualize. People want to know, what does it do on the day to day, so that they are inspired to follow the mindset that is yours.
Mm. On a day-to-day, it mostly manifested in my life and in my work in recent, like 2 or 3 years, when I also expanded my polymathy a lot, and somehow it turned into probably one of the best roles for polymaths at all which exists, is a role of advisor. Because what I do is exactly that. Whenever I work with either it's a company or a person, or kinds of consulting, or just I meet anybody anywhere and have a talk. And this is, I've been told numerous times, and by very different people, I've been told the same thing, that you just come and you say a couple of sentences and the whole situation shifts. Because this comes out, this is the result of this huge spectrum which I'm bringing in my range of domains and skills. Because looking at one thing, I look from at least 10 different lenses at the same time. And I give this sort of advice, like I say, okay, but what about that? And people are like, oh my God, we never thought of this. And then we explore layers and layers and layers. And yeah, it's very conceptual, I would think. It's not that I can't even give, like, because every situation is very specific, and sometimes it's also very either private or too, company confidential. That's why I can't give concrete examples. But this is something very concrete, that a polymathic mind is able to look at something from very different perspectives simultaneously, and show the holes in the loop, show the problems and solutions very fast. It's like a multi expert, because this is, by the way, the difference. If probably the difference between an expert and not an expert is that basically an expert is able to assess the situation from a totally different point of view and give different solutions. That's why we invite experts to solve problems. But a polymath expert is the person who will see a situation from very different perspectives and suggest solutions which are out of the box, or frame the situation that way that people will come up with their solutions based on the expertise already in their fields, and that will be very disruptive and novel and actually saving situations. So that's it. And for me, this is the core why polymathic mind is so much needed today and tomorrow even more, because we will be challenged by so many huge problems. I mean, unfortunately, wars will increase, nature calamities will increase. We will have really enormous pressure on all the sides, and for that you need people who will be able to see the situation, to suggest solutions very fast, and to also to inspire others to act. This is like, most polymaths are very inspiring also. It's another another interesting point of that.
I completely agree because I think, polymaths, like especially yourself, you are walking philosophies because there's been so much work being done from within. There's so much self-reconciliation that, of course, it's inspiring. To bring back to what I live and breathe, I always found that kindness is born from perceptiveness, and most kind people are born from the rubble of great adversity. And they are outliers, and they are the lonely children that sit by themselves, on lunch tables. And I was that lonely child, and that gave me a lot of time with myself and within myself, to see the world and to see things from 100,000 different ways, because I was not being considered in the mainstream. So my perception, what I needed, for example, with me, and I see this across, my life, but particularly in my personal life with friends, with my family, I require a lot more clarity because the world never seemed very clear to me because it was a world that did not reflect me. So, for example, when I resolve problems, I find that a lot of the time it's a lack of clarity. It's a lack
Mm,
of genuine transparency. And when you
mm,
operate from those different dimensions, like you said, because you're already seeing the world from such multi-disciplines and multiple prisms, that when you come into a space, you've almost already diagnosed the blueprint of the situation without having to dig too deep into it. So that, I think, is, again, it goes back to what you said about being effortlessly receptive to knowledge, being effortlessly capable of productivity. And I found that kindness is very, very much the same, because it's the ability to see, to think, to approach things in such a radically ethical way where others would
mhm,
cut corners, or to approach things in such a radically forgiving way where others would strategize and utilize their energy for more destructive purposes, that people find that the most organic path is usually the most sane and usually the most effective. Um, my last question for you today is, I found that, and this is something that we haven't explored, so please feel free to explore it, but I found that polymaths often have a very strong ethical compass. And I find that that's almost, that stands as something that keeps their good karma going and perpetuates this kind of flourishing and this, we say lack of bastegi in Farsi, so a lack of, barriers that get in the way. Because when you do things for the sake of the ultimate good, the way shows itself and the way becomes seamless. And I often believe that people like Imam Ghazali and Maulana Jalaluddin Muhammad Baqi Rumi, who I also believe is a polymath, and Ibn al-Sina, their strong, very deep relationship with the divine must have also really cultivated a lot of blessing and growth and good karma in their work. So my question to you is, what do you practice? What do you stack in terms of your practices, your beliefs that sharpen your ethical compass? And have you found that that has a relationship with the amount of impact and the amount of good that you do as a polymath by holding true to your ethical compass and your human compass, and any disciplines that you can share with others?
Yeah, here is, it's a very interesting question, because in fact, if you consider that precisely having the poly lens and having this polymathic disposition makes you, it's actually a challenge for the ethics. I tell you why, because I remember it very sharply, when I was 11, I thought I should probably become an advocate, because at that age already I had this quality that I was able to justify anybody. because at that age already, I could see the reasons behind people completing even crimes, because I could kind of read that. I could see, okay, that is because of this and that. Of course, that was very naive, because you can never know what are the real reasons. And but at that age already, I said, I was never interested, by the way, in any law profession, but I just thought I should become an advocate, because I would be very effective um, in speaking for people in front of justice, you know, because I could just protect anybody who is uh, innocent or not. So I had this. This is the. I think this is the divergent thinking, or what is this? This is this called. No, no. It's the dialectical thinking. This is this quality of dialectical thinking when you are able to see thesis and antithesis, and at the same time fuse them into synthesis. This is what one of my personal, and as far as I could trace, I have even a chapter on it in my book, Why Polymaths, about this, that dialectical thinking is one of the features of a polymathical thinking, because you have to be fusing things, and you have to be also you're able to keep two controversial positions at the same time, and you have no problems with that. So this is one part.
Mm.
At the same time, I can say that people who know me personally and for a long time, and they all say that I have exceptionally high ethics, absolutely much, much higher than the average. And people say that this is kind of, this is striking for many, because they say that it's like very unusual that somebody today have such strong ethical principles and never breaks them.
Mm.
And so this is also a part of my nature. I can say only for myself, because I'm definitely that person that, for me, humanity comes first, and humanity and the life itself. Yeah. And I have also strong aversion to evil. So, I mean, evil in terms of like things which we all humanly commonly understand, like killing or something like that. So somehow, also, for instance, one thing which I have, this is very personally very unusual, like I never swear. I
Yeah.
just don't do that. I just don't use this word, never. And this is very unusual for, like, even it, I know everybody does this, so I don't know anybody who wouldn't do this. So somehow, so there are some things which I do, but again, this comes very natural, very organic, very seamless. I do not force to be that way. It's just what I am. But I was like that as a child already. And I kept this through my life as a line. And I don't know how it actually correlates with this dialectical thinking, while being able to understand lots of people and to justify lots of things. At the same time, there are clear borders of my own ethics where I say, no, this path I don't go, just no way. I'm not able to, not willing, and whatever. Yeah. So somehow, I don't know, that's very contradictory, and I can't explain this, but whether it works for all polymaths, I don't know, because what we should be clear about, and this is a very important thing to understand, that uh, polymaths, they are representatives. I mean, polymathic people, they represent humanity as any other people. It means also the percentage of like dark trade people is same. And so we have dark trade people among polymaths as same as in others. And these people, logically and typically for dark trade people, like all these psychopath and sociopath and narcissist and Machiavellian type, they all want power and they want money. So basically, this is the point which I want to emphasize here, that we're not romanticizing so much, but I would separate these things. So there are people who are now very influential in the world of business. So basically, all the founders of world corporations like Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, all these guys, they are polymaths. We have to be aware of that. And this is also the point which I always make, that polymaths run this world. Either on this side or on the other side, they do this because to run these corporations, to have these huge strategies and technologies and everything, you have to have this type of mind. But most probably these guys are dark trade guys, that's why they are there. So, but this has nothing to do with the point that they are polymaths. So, but we have to be aware of that a certain percent of polymathic people can very well be psychopaths, and this is normally like 1 to 5, 1 to officially it's 1% of humanity, but they say yes, if we take all dark trade, that altogether probably 3%, we don't know. But in general, it's like there are some people, and they will be very much in the light of the public, because they will be running some things. The same happens in politics and in the world of money and everywhere. So it's also in relation to the question of ethics. Yeah, so basically we have to separate these things. There is ethics, there are people who are having this, unfortunately, this is brain-wise, predestined or wired, whatever, this dark trade type. It's just there, you can't influence that. And then there are huge numbers of polymaths who are just normal people like you and me, enjoying their lives, doing a lot of good and cross-pollinating. This is, again, I want to bring it back to that topic, that one of the main features and contributions of polymaths to the world is actually cross-pollinating between communities. Because people within their communities, they normally never meet other communities. They just fix in their professional communities, maybe one local community, maybe one religious community, but that's basically all. Then you have your family members who happen to have different professions. Okay, you meet occasionally once a year, you talk about different topics because these people represent different professions, but that's it. Normally, people never meet people outside of the fields or daily lives. But polymathic people, they frequent different communities. They meet them. They talk to them. They bring them together for, like, I constantly, because I advise companies and organizations, so I constantly bring them together, in most unusual combinations. And I see, look, you can come together, we can do something here, and someday I start new projects and all that. So it's flowing all the time. And this is such an important function in the society, and which is definitely related to kindness again, because I mean, this is what they call in America. I found this word, I recently learned this word, they call it personable. If someone is very personable, and this has a lot to do with kindness, because then you're just, you're open, you enjoy being with others, and this flows. This is the flow, which is a natural flow of, again, I think the word we came together today to this organic term of being organic as a polymath and a kind person, because this is not forced. This is just natural. And this is what I love about the whole thing, that it flows smoothly, so you even don't think of that much. You're just doing that.
That's so beautiful. And I think I love what you said is that there is a, before we get on to the very last, and I found my most favorite question because I learned so much from guests like, especially guests like yourself. You talk about that even though, and I've seen this in yourself and I've seen this in other polymaths, and I would also mirror this, is that while I have almost radical acceptance of people, because I understand why people are the way that they are. And I've been around narcissists, I've been around Machiavellian types, I was in the legal and in the finance industry. So I
Yeah,
was very fluent in these things. But to hold true to an unshakable foundation of ethics, that is also something that I truly align with. And I'm so grateful that there are pioneers like yourself who are leading the civilization of light by integrating their polymathy with the light that is already within. And the dream that I have, a civilization of kindness, is where people can reach the levels of Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and the others, while also maintaining deep fidelity to their humanity. And it's not impossible. It has been done
it is,
many civilizations.
of course.
To thank you, Aksinya. You are, and most people would echo this, a universe in and of yourself. It is very almost painful to bring a conversation with you to an end because the heart just wants to keep listening. And I'm so grateful for such a memorable conversation with you. In one sentence or in a word, whichever works for you, what do you think from the incredible life that you have? What does kindness mean to you?
Mm, You know, it's we could say that if we can explain one word with one word, what does that mean at all? But I think that means generosity still. In on many levels.
Mm.
It's generosity. It's generosity, abundance, this is that, somehow coming from that. Because for me, like there are things, there is a play between love and compassion. For me, like if people ask me what is compassion, I usually say that compassion is the manifestation of love, the acting of love, where love becomes an act. It's like love becomes a verb in compassion because you translate it through that. But in kindness, it's generosity for me because you have this abundance of your goodness and you just want it to flow and you see that goodness in others and it's this process of sharing. So it has a lot of mutuality and generosity and sharing. So it's yeah, it's an interesting because it's different from like love and compassion. I would say this is something different. If I really think of that, I don't know what is your like. I would be interested to know what do you think of that. What for you as a kindness expert? How do you see that in relation to what I've just said? Is it what you kind of inclined to, or you have some other ideas?
Well, I love that you said that because from what I know of you and from this conversation and being a polymath, it is generosity. Polymaths hold their minds, their souls are generous to themselves by gifting them the capacity to cross-pollinate across disciplines. And it's also what they administer to others. There is this abundance with which they move and this abundance with which they administer to others. So absolutely. Very recently, I've discovered that, yes, love, you can be in love, you can love someone, but maybe the compassion and maybe the generosity may not be there. And compassion,
Mm.
you can have an understanding, you can have a feeling, you can have empathy for someone, but you may not act upon that. That's why I don't talk about empathy, I talk about kindness. So I absolutely align with you that generosity is different to and is not assumed as given within love, within compassion. I believe that generosity is in many ways far superior to both. So I
Mm.
absolutely agree with you. Thank you so much, Aksinya, again for a transformative conversation. And I'm so looking forward to how this will be received by everyone, but I think especially Gen Z, who perhaps do not have mainstream access to philosophies as abundant and as transformative as this. So thank you so much for your time, for your presence.
Thank you, Meryl.